Meanwhile, former President Trump holding a rally in Ohio on Saturday, saying that President Biden's climate change agenda is driving the auto business into bankruptcy, and it will result in an industry bloodbath of jobs if he does not win re-election. Watch this.
We're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars if I get elected. Now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country.
Yeah, I mean, he was obviously talking about the auto sector. The mainstream media took the remarks out of context, putting all these headlines out there, claiming that he's inciting political violence rather than painting the full picture about his remarks, referring to the economy and auto jobs. The Biden-Harris campaign basically set the tone, told the media what to do, running with the narrative, saying this is who Donald Trump is, a loser who gets beaten by over 7 million votes, and then instead of appealing to a wider mainstream audience, doubles down on his threats of political violence. He wants another January 6th, says Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Joining me right now is former New York State Senator and Democrat strategist David Carlucci and Republican strategist and the Vogel Group principal Matt Keelen. Great to see you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here. David, you can understand why nobody trusts the media after that, right?
Well, yeah, I can appreciate that. And I see everyone having to come to Donald Trump's defense and really say what he meant to say. And the problem is the context, right? That Donald Trump starts off this rally praising the January 6th, what he calls hostages. In that same speech, he talks about some immigrants not even being human. So you can see how I think a lot of people are on edge. A lot of moderates, a lot of people in the middle that are very concerned about what happened on January 6th. When they hear rhetoric like that, it's almost like a dog whistle, and people jump when they hear certain terms. So I think the big problem here is I think Republican surrogates were right to come to his defense and try to parse out what he meant to say. But this is a problem that's going to face Donald Trump heading into the general election, where every time he gives one of these freewheeling speeches, there's going to be so much cleanup that has to be done and parse through what he said and what he meant to say.
Well, I don't know about the cleanup that needs to be done about what he said, but there's a lot of cleanup that needs to be done about this economy and about foreign affairs, isn't there, David? I mean, look, ever since Joe Biden walked into the White House, our adversaries have been on the march. There's a lot of stuff to fix out there, isn't there?
Well, I mean, you know better than anyone that these talk of a 100% tariff, I mean, this is kind of being reckless. The fact that he would say that, we know that's not going to happen. Why? Because it'll be a war between China and the United States on these tariffs, and not just the cars, but each of the parts. And so Joe Biden has done his part in the CHIPS Act, in the Inflation Reduction Act, to say that these vehicles have to be made here in the United States, that if we are going to lead the EV revolution, but the parts, the cars, they all have to be made in the United States, and that's going to help our economy and make sure that we're leaders. Not this protectionism where we hide in the corner, hide under the bed. We've got to face the economy full on, and this is the way that we do it, to make it in America.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because Joe Biden has been hiding in the basement. You know, he hid in the basement during the campaign season, the last presidential election. And when you take a look at these tariffs that you're referring to, the bigger issue for me, and I want to get the other side on this, jump in here, because the other side of this is the national security issues. So I don't know if it's tariffs, 100% tariffs, or if it's sanctions, or what it is, but something's got to be done to stop communist China. Isn't that right?
Maria, absolutely. And under President Trump, communist China was on the retreat. We were actually making money off of the Chinese. Joe Biden is right back into the pocket of the Chinese. And manufacturing under President Trump was booming everywhere. We need to get back to the Trump policies. We need to get back to a booming economy, a booming stock market, and also our allies that respect us and our enemies who fear us. Right now, we have none of that.
Well, I know
Matt,
what you're saying in terms of the enemies, but the stock market is rallying right now. I mean, AI has, you know, empowered this market. So I don't know that you could actually talk about the stock market the same way, Maria, that you would talk about other. Yeah, I just want to point that out, Matt. You're saying the stock market. The stock market's rallying.
If you're talking about people sitting around their kitchen table, husband and wives, families, single moms, they're all struggling to pay their bills, to look to the future. That's a fact. Under President Trump, those same families and those same people were going on 2 vacations a year, David. Now they can't even leave to go on a one-night stay-homer. It's sad.
Right.
David, is that true?
And I know we talk about this. We've had inflation. It has been a global problem. We know that the policies
really
that Joe Biden has implemented have helped curb that. Is everyone feeling that at the kitchen table? Not necessarily, but it's something we've got to continue to push for, not just point out the problems. We got to look towards solutions.
Right, but the president is not looking at solutions, David. He wants to spend more money. We all know how this inflation started. It was too many dollars chasing too few goods. I mean, you just went ahead and listed all this stuff that the president did. The CHIPS Act, the Inflation Reduction Act. But this is trillions of dollars this was trillions of dollars in borrowing. And that is why we are looking at a debt that we have, and it was trillions of dollars in spending, and that's why inflation went to 40-year highs, David. You know that.
No, but we know Donald Trump increased the deficit under his leadership. Joe Biden's proposal that he just put forth lowers the deficit by $3.3 trillion over 10 years.
No.
That's a fact.
What he's lowering,
just like the Deficit Reduction Act did.
Yeah, the committee for a responsible budget has come out on that and called a lot of the president's comments false. Like he said in the State of the Union, he cut the deficit by $1 trillion. No, he really didn't. What cut the deficit by $1 trillion is the COVID money that went away. We had all that spending on COVID, and then it went away. So, of course, then the deficit goes lower. But, you know, all of this spending is what got us into this problem. And he wants to keep spending and putting stimulus out there. Right now, he's blowing off the Supreme Court saying, oh, no, I'm still going to forgive student debt, even though the Supreme Court said it's unconstitutional.
By the way, that was after he threatened the Supreme Court at the State of the Union speech.
Well,
Joe Biden is trying to do what he can to help people that are straddled with debt. And one tool is to relieve that student debt. Look, that's just one part of many things that need to be done. But what I hear on the Republican side is just attacking Joe Biden for the things he's doing. Yes, he's trying to relieve student debt. Yes, he's trying to lower the deficit. Yes, we're investing in manufacturing jobs here in the United States. The CHIPS Act alone has brought billions of dollars of private investment money to the table. And this is what's spurring our economy right now, lowering the unemployment rate. We're at record lows.
Let me ask you, David, I think the biggest issue around this president right now is the wide open border. Can you look me in the eye and say that this president has been responsible for the southern border?
The problems at the southern border have been going on for years. Well,
that's not true.
Joe Biden took
That's
office.
not true.
No.
That's not true.
Biden, they have a proposal,
that's just
right?
not true. It's just not true.
No,
Under President Trump,
it is such a dire situation.
Under President Trump,
table, spend some political capital, but they're unwilling to do it.
Border apprehensions under President Trump were at a 40-year low, okay? And now we're at a 20-year high. We have terrorists coming in. We just had a guy whose story that we just did, that a guy said he was part of Hezbollah. We had other people coming with ties to ISIS. We've got foreign drones that are flying around the southern border. And the FBI is warning that this is a major issue for national security. But Joe Biden won't do anything about it, David. How does he get away with that?
David and I have talked about this before.
Right now, we know
he
the
has
fix
the
is
power
through
of the pen,
comprehensive
David.
legislation.
Hold on. We can't hear if you're both talking. If you're
Absolutely
both
not.
talking, we cannot hear. David, you first. How does Joe Biden justify what his action has been or inaction at the southern border? How is he justifying this?
He's come to the table with legislation to say, look, in order to fix this has been a problem for a long time. It's not something new under Joe Biden. Remember,
that's not true.
Fentanyl deaths
Return to Mexico, David.
Under Donald Trump. This is not something new. So
that's
the
not
idea is we have to reform our immigration process.
True.
The only way we do it is through legal immigration.
Spin.
No, that's not true either. The Senate bill had 5,000 illegals coming in every day before anything can be done about it. That's why that Senate bill was pushed out and not moved forward.
But we can't.
Fentanyl increased huge. Have you spoken to any?
We have to compromise on both sides.
Of course, we care about this issue.
Compromised on that bill.
The president won't compromise.
That they would never do. They put in that bill. Republicans said they would do it, and then they refused because Donald Trump said at the last minute, "Don't do it."
Maria, the president could go back to the return to Mexico policy tomorrow.
No. Go ahead, David. Matt,
by the way, the president could go back to the return to Mexico policy tomorrow, David.
Gentlemen, we can't hear if you're both talking over each other, okay? Final word, Matt.
Right. The president could go back to the return to Mexico policy tomorrow. It was his policies that started this. Donald Trump had the border under control. He could also go on TV, Maria, and say, if you come to our border, we're going to return you home, instead of saying we're going to welcome you. That's the problem. You talked about it earlier with California and other states actually enticing people to come here.
David, your final word,
Remember,
and let me just say that when the president started his office as president, he did 90-plus executive orders overturning Trump's security at the border. Go ahead. Final word, David.
Look, Remain in Mexico is about a legal immigration process. These are people that are applying for asylum, etc. This is not illegal immigration. Illegal immigration, people are coming to this border because of desperate situations. The way that we fix that is provide support to our Border Patrol, but we also reform the system to make sure there's a legal process. People are fighting their way to get in here no matter what. What we can do is Republicans and Democrats need to come to the table.
Viewers are on to this.
Through compromising on both sides.
Here's the bottom line. Viewers understand this story better than anybody. They're on to all of this. Matt Keelen, David Carlucci, thank you, gentlemen. We'll be right back.